All right. Hi, everyone. It's Vaishali from the Caregena podcast, and here I am today with Zara.
Hey everyone, I'm Zehra.
All right. So thank you for being here today. What specific goals and aspirations drive the service work you engage in?
Yeah, for sure. So, just a little bit of background on me. I have been doing stand up comedy for the past 5 to 6 years, so it's been a while now. And I think my journey sort of started off in like a series of different ways. Um, I always loved, like growing up, storytelling, maybe making people laugh. It was always something I really loved. I grew up in a household where I was always made fun of, and we'd always tease each other, and that sort of just like played into just me loving to just make people laugh, and even if that meant that I was the butt of the joke, I still really liked that. And I think it's just given me a lot of perspective on people. It's allowed me to empathize with other people and create this sense of relatability and unity.
Mhm.
So I think that's really what like drives me to like continue. So I would say like one of my specific goals would just be to like create unity with like laughter and a good sense of relatability. And I think it just unites people. So it's really rewarding to sort of see that. So yeah.
Definitely, yeah. I mean, I love comedy as well. Like when you're in a grumpy mood and you just hear a joke, you're just like, all of a sudden, you just change someone's entire personality like that. So I love that. Yeah. Could you share a deeply personal or impactful story that inspired your involvement in the service work?
Yeah, for sure. So I think for me, I watched a lot of comedy growing up. Like like I said, like my parents were like they love comedy. So I don't know if you know the Couple Sharma show, but
Yeah,
my parents would
my
always
favorite.
tell me. I like grew up watching like these comedians just speak. Later on, I got really intrigued by Hassan Minaj's like sets, and then John Mulaney as well. There's just a lot of other comedians that I just grew up watching, and I think them like watching them was super inspiring as well, but then also I would barely see like any women on stage, and I think for me I was like I want to see someone that I can connect with deeply on a personal level. So it's really nice to see a lot more women coming out today, but it was also something that I just wanted to do just because I wanted to be able to talk about the female experience, because I feel like there's so much we go through and there's a lot of content there. So I would say like that was like one of the biggest things that inspired me as well to just like be on stage. But then also I used to be a part of a competitive speaking team in middle school, and I think that really sparked my love for public speaking in general. And then this like watching comedy on the side, growing up in this sort of household, and then just loving puns and dad jokes at a very young age also really just like sparked my passion. I was like, man, I love this. I loved the eye rolls that I got from like making like a bad pun or a dad joke. And I think that was just like I was like I want to bring this to the stage and just make a whole set of people laugh rather than three or four friends. And I think for a lot of comedians we like start off by like kind of performing comedy in front of like our friend groups or like families and stuff, and they're sort of like our audience, and we sort of find our stage within like these like small dining tables or like weird like lunch spots. And I think I realized that I loved storytelling upon like meeting these like different people. I just always found myself just like talking to people about random life experiences and just spinning them in like a humorous manner. And I really wanted to just bring that to like a larger crowd. So I think I found comedy as a really nice medium for me to be able to do that. So yeah, I would say like all of those things really play into why I'm like doing this, why I'm still doing it after a few years now, and why I hope to continue doing this as well.
Yeah, I guess one question I have is, how has comedy impacted how, you let other people like perceive your, I guess your beliefs and kind of like about activism, as to say, as a woman especially.
Yeah, for sure. I think in the beginning I thought that like me being like a female on stage is gonna be like a big thing, but I think beyond that, it's the content that you're really delivering that
Mhm.
is sort of like the branding factor. So for me, I would always I like even like currently I still talk about like pretty serious issues and just try to spin it with like my personal experiences and then make it humorous in that manner.
Mhm.
So I think one of my first couple of sets was actually about the election, because I started around like 2020-ish or like
Oh, nice.
2019. So I actually started talking about like the elections and just like random like geopolitical issues because I do have an interest in politics as well. So I would talk about like these kinds of things, and people were often like taken aback that you're taking something so serious and making it kind of humorous, and it's often like I would say it's a riskier kind of way to be performing, but I think if it's delivered in the right way, it's fine. And so for me, like a lot of my sets are pretty serious. I talk about pretty serious issues and then just spin them in a way to make them more humorous. So I've talked about like a lot of different things. So in the past, I've done like the elections. I've done climate change. That's a pretty big one, and then the education system. So those are sort of like the three I feel like I can speak on the best. But I do definitely think that if there is someone talking about like a serious social activism like issue and they're not well educated on it, that's when it's like and it's a
Yeah.
no, because it won't resonate with your audience and on that deeper level as well. If you're not passionate and you don't know about that topic either. So I think for me, I try to do things that I would know a lot about, and I'm definitely passionate about, and then I speak about that. So I think in terms of like activism, just talking about things that like I really know well on, and then educating the people on like certain fun facts or just like sharing my personal stories with like the effects of these issues going on in the world, is the way sort of I use activism through my comedy. Yeah.
Definitely. And I think, it is important to, I guess, not only comedy, but also poetry, to really, or like public speaking in general, like to really relate to your audience. And, it's great that, you can make it really like your message come out with whether it be through politics or, any other sort of, I guess, media. I guess, sometimes there's stories where comedians maybe come on the news saying they, like they made up stuff. But,
Yeah.
so like, I guess by trying it to make it relatable, how do you face that?
Yeah. So I think um, I would say in terms of, I think the more original the story is, the
Mhm.
stronger you'll be able to speak about that experience. Like if you're making up an experience just to relate with an audience, it's not gonna come off as strongly as even if like the thing I've noticed in the past is I used to think like when I was first performing on stage that I have to have this hilarious story and has to be extremely funny by nature. But I think the art of a comedian is that they make the most normal experiences very funny. And I think like it was something I learned like after a while that I have to just take very routine experiences and mold those in a way where it makes people laugh without changing a lot of the story. I mean, for sure, I think most comedians will like exaggerate certain things, maybe exaggerate like an age or a time frame or use like bigger words. But at the end of the day, the whole, at least for me, I try to make sure the plot of the story is the same, the characters are the same, things like that, because I want to be able to talk about them in a way where I can basically draw out the picture for the audience to make them feel like they're actually witnessing the story that I'm telling them.
Mhm.
So I think it's definitely, I would say it's better to have an original experience and just be talking about that because you'll be able to paint a more vivid picture for your audience. And that's sort of what you want to do whenever you, whether it's comedy or public speaking, you want them to be able to like fit into the scene that you're talking about. And I think the
Mhm.
best way to do that is to maintain originality of some sort. And obviously for humor, you can exaggerate a little. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I guess, just like, when I was young, I was really shy and kind of dealt with a lot of social anxiety. So do you have any tips for the audience who may be young and want to, want to, say a few lines in front of the crowd without, freaking out?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I started off really young too, and I'll be honest with you, my first sets were bad. Like I was not the best, and I feel like you're never going to be super funny always. I mean, if you're trying to like, I usually try to go for like 2 to 4 jokes per minute, maybe.
Mhm.
So if we estimate like a 15-minute set and you're shooting for 4 jokes a minute, let's say like 60 jokes, like not all 60 of them will do the job that you want them to do. They won't perform always as well. You're not going to have 100% hit mark every time. And I think that was really hard for me to grasp. Like when I was first performing, I was like, dang it, I'm not funny. Like this isn't good. And I think the thing is just like really just persisting through it. And I know it's like definitely easier said than it is done. There were like times where I was like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Maybe I'm just not funny enough. But I feel like after you get a gauge of your audiences and like sort of realize what's like hitting right now based on the media, based on what's happening online, you really get a good idea of what your audience will like. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just breaking through that shell and being able to like face that failure when you're on stage, because I think the hardest thing for me was when you're on stage, you have the joke ready and then you say it and no one's laughing. And I
Yeah.
think that just it's embarrassing, but at the same time it's so important for you to be able to just face that failure up front and just move on to the next thing, because you can't pause on stage either and be like, okay, I'm out. You have to just stand there and go through the whole thing. Um, and I think for me, that was like the hardest. I was like, I can't even walk away. I just have to like look at these people and continue through the set.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, that was like the most difficult thing. But I think once you get practice of just failing constantly, which is basically the process, you realize that it's not that deep. You'll go, you'll sleep, you wake up the next morning, you'll perform again, and maybe you won't be as good, but you'll be better. Because you
Definitely.
learn a lot from each performance you do. So I'd say there's like from all the performances I look back on, there's at least one thing I've taken away and I've applied to like my next script. And so I feel like that is it's definitely like a process. Like everything is. Like you have to just go through the steps. It's not like no one's I feel like no one's inherently extremely hilarious. Like not like even the funniest comedians, not all of their jokes have like 100% hit rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think you just have to like persist through, and I know it's hard, but you got to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. And I think like especially, starting off, like, one shouldn't be afraid to step out of their comfort zone. I mean, this kind of applies to anything, like whether it be academics or even sports, um, trying to reach for the stars, as the metaphor goes. Like, I'd say, practice makes progress, and
Yeah, for sure.
later
And
on, perfection.
for sure, for sure. And I think like you too, like when I was younger, I was extremely quiet. I wouldn't talk to a lot of people. I sort of kept within myself. And I think
Mhm,
it's like once you realize you have a passion for something, you'll just inherently like go towards it. So
mhm.
I feel like if you're passionate about it, you should still continue even if you've like failed once or twice or a bajillion times. Just like keep going. Like you'll get there at some point. So yeah, I definitely agree
Definitely.
with you.
Yeah, so I guess, yeah, when reflecting on your experience with stand-up comedy, what are some of the most formidable challenges you've encountered and have you navigated through them?
Challenges I've encountered. I think I think for me, like early on, just like when I was first starting out, I would do like smaller venues, so I would be able to present to like younger people, and so that
Mhm.
meant that my content was more relatable to them. And I think early on, I was like, oh man, I'm great. Like things are working out. Everyone gets what I'm saying. And then later on, when I tried to move to like larger venues, they were primarily adults because younger audiences aren't really allowed in locations where often stand-up comedy performances happen. So I was performing at like bars and like places like that for like bigger venues. And so I remember one of my first like larger sets was like performed at like this bar, and I remember there were just all adults, and none of the jokes were hitting. And I was like, oh no, because I kept with the same script I went with for like my younger audiences, and I think it was hard for me to realize that these people aren't gonna get the same stuff that my other audiences got. And so depending on where I'm performing, you have to like understand sort of who your audience is going to be beforehand. And I think
Mhm.
that research was something that I didn't do like when I was first starting out, because I didn't think it would be a huge factor, which I guess was a problem on my end. But after some time, you're sort of able to understand also based on like the region you're going to, what sort of like demographic you'll be performing in front of, and based on that you can like structure your script accordingly. And I think that was like a skill I learned like after a while, also because like there's certain jokes that you want to keep in your script but you don't know how to mold them for a certain audience. And I think that like takes some time. Like I have to sit down for like maybe 30 minutes just to change one joke for a different kind of audience. And I think at first I was like, oh, I'm just like funny, so everyone will just laugh at anything I say. but there's so much molding and shaping in like the back end. Like there's so much like there's a lot of like steps and process that goes like behind the scenes, that I feel like a lot of people don't see if you're like watching just like people on YouTube that are doing comedy.
Mm-hmm.
Like it takes so much practice, and it was something that I definitely like didn't realize when I was first getting into it.
Mm-hmm.
But now that I've gotten into it, I enjoy that process, and I like going through it, even though sometimes it takes so much time. But
Yeah,
it's so rewarding at the end, when the joke like works out. So yeah.
definitely. And did you have anyone like support you? I know a few comedians, they have like supporting actors or anyone to help maintain the joke, I'd say.
You mean like in the audience?
I'd say like kind of like anyone, yeah.
Anyway, okay. I would say that I think it was really nice to have my parents like support me just in general. Like I
Mhm.
would spend a lot of my parents wanted me to like study and work hard as well, but this was
Mhm.
something I was super passionate about, and it does take a good amount of my time. A lot of my weekends are gone in just performing.
Yeah.
Um, and despite how much they love me studying and sitting down and locking in for certain classes, they were always willing to like take me to certain shows and be there and support me. And I think that's really rewarding to have. I know like when you hear a lot of like comedians like backstory, you like see that their parents aren't as supportive, and I think that makes it extremely difficult for you to also continue through the route. But I was really like blessed to have like parents that are like constantly supporting me and are wanting me to like work harder for something that I really am passionate about and really like. So I'd say that's really nice. And then also, I think like meeting other comedians at certain shows is really fun as well, because I'm sort of on the younger end too. So they give me a lot of tips, and they talk to me after shows and sort of tell me what will work out and what won't. And it's really nice to just be like getting really nice feedback, but then also making like friends that are comedians. So I'd say that is extremely rewarding as well. I met some comedians that are around my age, which is nice too.
Wow.
So I would say like there's definitely like a strong support system, because also I think a lot of the a lot of the comedians, at least the ones I've met, are extremely nice and they're very empathetic, and I think that's just something that a lot of comedians have, because they're constantly empathizing and observing like people just to
Mhm.
realize like what joke will work and what joke won't. And I think that's like something really nice to have within a community. Um, and so yeah, definitely like the comedy community is so great, and they have my heart forever. But also my parents. So yeah.
And yeah, and especially I think, comedy can be applied like in every, like I'd say like I guess every community, right? It's like it's just a way where we all come together, and it's like it's just, heartfelt.
For sure, for sure, for sure. It's a universal language.
So yeah, what novel approaches has, comedy embraced to confront complex social issues or adversities?
Yeah, so I think in terms of social issues, a lot of like I mentioned earlier, I talk typically about like certain issues going around like in the community. So a lot of my sets are actually based around like stereotypes and misrepresentation for the communities I identify with.
Mhm.
So I think in terms of that, like I'm able to sort of hit that mark. I am a part of an organization actually where we inspire younger comedians to sort of come out of their shell and talk about certain like geopolitical issues, social issues. So we get a lot of young people. So I sort of try to take my love for comedy and try to like inspire like younger audiences. So that in that organization we like perform at like community rooms and like city hall and stuff, and we do some fun things with that. So we're usually able to like meet the mark and like tackling like social issues that we have. So in the past we've done like topics like digital disparities, problems with our education system, social media and its effects, and like other things like that. So I feel
Mhm.
like that's really nice to be doing on the side while I'm performing like on the stage, sort of at like larger venues. But it's nice to have that going as well. Um, I would say just like in general for like anything, like whatever it is, like I just did comedy and tried to apply it to something else that I was passionate about. I mentioned earlier I was passionate about politics, so I sort of just try to bridge like politics and comedy to create to like be a part of this organization, and then like serve as president of it. But then also I'm like performing on stage. So I think like for anything, you should just try to bridge your interests with anything and then try to apply that in the real world, whether that's
Mhm.
like tech or business or whatever else it may be. Um, so yeah, I think it's just there's so many things that can make like an impact, and I think it's hard for people to realize something even as like small or strange as comedy can do that.
Mhm.
So I think it's really nice to once again be a part of this like comedy community where I'm able to like be making like a smaller impact in our area, while also making a lot of people laugh, which is the most rewarding part of all of this for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like, um, with all of your experiences, has there been any incident where maybe you received like a comment which people did not like it, like your statement or opinion, and how did you deal with that?
For sure. Um, I've definitely had like hecklers at my performances be like, "Get her off stage. We don't like her." And honestly, I think like usually people like stand up for you and are like, "No, like it's fine." And like there's
Mhm.
usually some clash and stuff. There's always, I think in all of the audiences I've had where something like that's happened. It's not very often. It has happened like once where it was like kind of major, and I was like, "Oh no, what do I do?" Um, but I think there's always people that will stand up for you and like realize like you're still working hard, you're putting the effort, you're here on stage, so you've done something to get there.
Mhm.
So there's always people that will like stand up for you. There's always good within like a large pool of people. Um, so I would say for, I mean, in like those kinds of situations, like there's usually people that like handle like people that are like interrupting the show because that's just like disrespectful to begin with.
Yeah.
But I would say in terms of like more like external kind of like problems that I've had, like a lot of people, a lot of my like peers were, I think, really taken aback by the fact that I did comedy, and it was hard to sort of explain to them why I did it or why I really like enjoyed it. And also I think I started like pretty early on.
Mhm.
So I think even then I was like still struggling to put together like why I'm doing this and why I really enjoy doing this. Like it was hard
Mhm.
to like put it into words. And then like that translated into like me not really telling a lot of people that I did it because I didn't know how to explain that yeah, I just really like making people laugh.
Yeah.
Um, and also I feel like it's very like overlooked. A lot of people don't really see the importance of just like normal laughter and like social interaction anymore, especially with like the TikTok age. It's taking over, but like I think for all of us, it's like like we need that social interaction, and
Mhm.
humor is like one of those like super. I think it's really important for us to cherish it, especially since I feel like humor is one of the things that AI can't take away.
Yeah.
Um, you need like that natural like human like observation. You need those observation skills. You need that amount of like human empathy in order to be able to like make the jokes that a lot of comedians are making on stage.
Mhm.
So I think it's really nice to just like be able to cherish like the little bit of social interaction that we get in this day and age. And it's really nice to be able to do that on stage with like a large set of people. So I would like encourage like more people to like attend these kinds of shows. It doesn't even have to be like comedy, but just like any form of like in-person entertainment, whether that's like
Mhm.
a band concert or orchestra performing, or maybe like a live play. Like those kinds of things are just like very important that I think we should be cherishing until we have them. Um, so I think it's really nice to be able to be doing that with the work I do.
Yeah, definitely. I also danced in high school, so yeah, I love entertainment and especially the arts. So I guess my question is, like how everyone, I'd say from starting from middle school, everyone's so focused on the career, and I especially living in the Bay Area, they're like, oh, I'm gonna do robotics, and I'm gonna do all these different like STEM activities. Um, I'd say people have forgotten how to communicate.
For
And
sure, for sure.
that's such a big I guess just like especially in not only interactions and just like sports or just living a healthy life. It's like everyone is just focused on achieving this one big goal, which is having this getting into Harvard and earning millions of dollars. But is that really what makes people happy? What do you think?
Dang, that's deep. That's so deep. Okay. Wait, it's funny though, because I'm actually on our school's robotics team. No, but I would say I think that like happiness is like I would say like a combination of a lot of things. I don't think there's like one direct equation to happiness. I think there's a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
aspects that play a role into making you an overall happy person.
Mm-hmm.
So, would I love Harvard and $1 million? Yes. Would I be happy temporarily? Probably. But I think that when you like zoom out and look at like the bigger picture, you'll see people that didn't get into Harvard or don't have $1 billion in their bank account and are still living very happy lives. They're still very satisfied with the way they're living and the lifestyle that they have. And I think it's really relative to everyone. I feel like different things make different people happy, right?
Yeah.
So I would say like right now I don't have $1 billion in my bank account, and Harvard has yet to accept me. So, but I still feel like there's moments like there's small moments which will make me like an overall happy person. Like I might have a physics test tomorrow and might be sad tomorrow for 45 minutes, but I would still consider myself like an overall happy person. I feel like there's a little bit of happiness and sadness in everyone, and I think it's just like which one is bigger at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
So I wouldn't say it's like a straight equation. Um, but if it is, I mean, I still gotta find it. I still gotta figure it out.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And yeah, and like, some people are kind of living on like with their lives, never really understanding like how to be calm as a person. Like they're like stressed, especially with not just like, tech, but like so many different jobs. They're always just like anxious, like when I'm gonna pay my next bills and everything. And it's like they don't understand like how it is to be calm and just happy in the present moment, right?
Yeah, I think for sure it's also like just the hustle culture of like a lot of places where, especially in the Bay Area,
Yeah.
um, there's just that kind of like it's instilled within you at a very young age. Like you were saying, like there's like
Yeah.
12-year-old kids that are like, oh, I gotta get into this place. I have to be doing this when I'm 30 years old and do this when I'm 45 years old. They have their whole like life like plan set up, and I
Yeah,
think it's like I feel like your like life will never go according to plan. There will always be like random curveballs thrown at you. So I feel like
definitely.
no matter how planned you are and how much you have like thought out for your life, it's gonna be really hard to follow that direct path.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's definitely something like our society overlooks for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, from my own experience, like I was that overachiever kid. Um, and then COVID hit and I just like completely was like depressed. Like I was so isolated from like the entire community. And so what really did help me was just like yoga and meditation. And then I just, I started doing these podcasts in my free time. And I'd say, just starting something with like just self care and then just starting something small can bring you to a better place and help you open doors to like, new possibilities, maybe new careers. So, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I would definitely say so. And I think like even when I was in like that COVID time, that was actually when I was getting like my start in comedy because I was sort of leaving like the competitive speaking route, although I love competitive speaking still. You
Hmm.
could put me on a stage, I would have so much fun. But like that was sort of where I was digressing away from that, sort of leaning towards more like comedy as like my preferred way of like performing on stage like orally. So I think like for me too, like during that COVID time, it was really hard for me, like also because I think when we were going through like we were still like teenagers, right? Like we're still like
Yeah.
trying to like grow and like get out of that like sort of like awkward stage.
Yeah.
And so not having social interaction just made that much worse, I could say, like for all of us. So it's nice that you use like mindfulness and yoga and things to like help you through
Mhm.
that. And for me that was obviously like comedy and like just trying to find
Yeah.
ways to make people laugh. That was literally just how I was getting through
Yeah.
like everything, and I would just watch people perform on stage.
Oh yeah,
Um,
Couple Sharma Show was my go-to as well.
Definitely, that's my goat right there, a real one right there. um,
It's literally on Netflix, and I was like, oh my gosh, it has like so many new like Bollywood celebrities. I mean, I saw what was this guy's name? Like Shape of You. This
Ed Sheeran was on
Sheeran
there.
was on it. I was
Yeah,
like, oh my gosh, that's
my
so cool.
worlds were colliding. I was like, "Ain't no way, what?"
And they had the entire entrance, and I was like, you see, this is what diversity is, and
Yeah.
I feel like it's changing so much now, and it's just comedy, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I
It's
think it
so
was really
wonderful.
nice that they had Ed Sheeran. A lot of people were like memeing it or like making fun of it. But I just
Yeah,
thought it was really nice to see that like a small comedian like Couple Sherm was able to bring like this like big like music star from America on a show. It was really nice to see that and
definitely.
to yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, yeah, drawing from your own journey, what insights or pearls of wisdom would you impart to individuals embarking, in stand-up comedy or, whether they want to do like stand-up poetry or public speaking in general?
Words pearls of wisdom, right? Dang, okay. This gotta be good. I would say just like I think a lot of people, like at least the ones that I've met a lot of people at like my shows and things, or a lot of people through like the organization that I run. Um, and there's a lot of people that perform, but they're just doing it for the heck of performing. And I think that's when like a problem sort of occurs. Like it's like some like you're going like you could be going through like a slump or whatever when you're performing and stuff, and I get that. Like I've gone through I mean when I was competitively speaking for so long, I used to go through a lot of slumps actually. Because at some point you just get like tired of doing it and your
Hmm.
passion starts off really bright, and you want to do it. You're like, I can see myself doing this for years, and then you like go like for a couple years and you're like, dang, this is actually not as fun as I thought it was. And I feel like it's bound to happen for like anything that you do for a long period of time. um like it'd be a lie if I said that I haven't had like a time period where I'm like, maybe I don't want to perform anymore within like the past like 5 or 6 years. But it's like I think you have to have that like true initial passion that like gets you fired back into it. So like for me, like when I was like I think it was like last or like sophomore year summer where I was like, I don't know if I want to perform anymore. But there was still like a little bit of that like initial passion that I had. So it's like I would go back to like listening to like the comedy podcast that I would listen to growing up, and that would sort of like recharge me. So I think like for people that really want to do this, you should truly understand what it comes with, because not only is it a huge time commitment, but you're gonna fail constantly. You might not like your jokes sometimes. You might think you're the most like unfunny person in the world. And let me just tell you, for a comedian, being called unfunny is the worst thing in the world. It's worse than any other insult. Um, I know when like people like say that, like when I like, when you ask your friends like, oh, what are the 3 words you would like define me in? And
Oh.
if one of those words like my friends say isn't funny, like I feel like I haven't done my job. And it just comes with like the job that you're signing up for. So I feel like there are gonna be days where you're not the funniest person and you just have to like suck it up. And like sometimes the emotions you're going through are gonna be hard. As for like anything you do with like as with like anything you do, this could be for like sports or dance or like music or anything. But there are gonna be times where you're not the best and you just have to like face that. And I think you should understand sort of what you're signing up for, and
Yeah.
make sure you have that like true passion so that when you're performing on stage you don't like go through like like if you're not passionate, then you're gonna go through that failure in a much more like harmful manner for your mental health. And I feel like the harms that come with that aren't worth you like just performing on stage for like the heck of it. You should be like truly passionate so that you can get back into it and can be like, you know what, that's fine, I'll just do better at the next one. That was bad too, I'll do better at the next one. You just have to like keep going through. So I would say like before you really get committed to anything, it doesn't have to be comedy, you should make sure you have that initial passion so that if you do get um, if you do go through like curveballs or have like a downfall midway, you can always like get back up rather than going into like an insane asylum being like, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
Because I feel like the cost is like much more detrimental in that sense. So that's what I would say. But it's so fun, guys. I mean, there's so much pain, but it's so fun. It's so fun.
Yeah, I mean, do you also have any insights on, how to balance everything? I know it's like it might be very tiring, coming back from a show and you have a test the next day. Like, how do you balance it all?
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, okay, last year it was so bad. I had like 4 APs, and AP
Wow.
Chem had me. Like, it was
Oh my
eating me
gosh.
alive, bro. Eating me alive. Like, not only did I suck, the
And oh my
teacher.
gosh, it's two periods.
It's 2 classes, too. So every freaking day I was like, again, ions, no. It was was so hard to just like go to class knowing that I knew nothing. I had to. I was like one of the few kids that actually read through the textbook. Because I had to. I had no chemistry background. Like I came in not even knowing what an ion was. I knew the periodic table of elements song, and that's it. And I just walked into class being like, "Oh shoot, we're actually doing stuff." Um, but like yeah, so last year it was so hard for me to and I was performing a lot last year actually. I think I
Mm.
performed the most junior year.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
yeah, yeah, I mean, nice, but like you should have seen me, bro. If you kept me alive. But I would say like I was still able to like manage everything because I had like I think I was performing for so long already that like you
Mhm.
sort of know like my juices flow at a certain time of the day. Like I can't just get up in the morning and be like, no, it's time for me to type away because like the jokes aren't gonna work, the juices aren't gonna flow the right way. So like I have to be in a certain zone to even be able to like write my scripts.
Mhm.
So for me that time was usually like the evening time, so I usually take like from like 5 to like 8ish to like write out scripts, depending on how much time I need, whether it's like I'm editing or adding more jokes or starting from scratch. So like usually like sit down in the evening time, and I wake up pretty early too, so I would do a lot of my studying like early morning,
Uh,
or like late night. So I was staying up pretty late like junior year just to like get things done.
yeah.
But I feel like it was worth it. I was performing a lot last year. I was still able to like manage it. There were definitely days where I was just like, oh, I can't do this. I can't do it. But I think you just like get over it after some time. Um,
Yeah.
I was pretty much numb to the pain AP Chem brought on me. So
I
um,
was like that with calculus. Oh my gosh.
that's what I'm saying, bro. It's like, what are they doing out? Like, they're putting these kids through torture. These innocent children.
No, I think it's literally just this idea that we've been talking about having this like kind of this plan that if I do all of this, I get into this.
Yeah, yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
equation, I'd say it's been instilled in literally like every parent, and they're like, I want my kid to do all this. And it's not just Bay Area, it's like everywhere. Like I'd say like, and then the parents are putting pressure on their children, and if they don't achieve that standard, they're like, oh, why didn't you do that? What were you doing? And it's like, why? Like, we are human.
For sure, for sure. And I think last year for me, it was like there was the parental pressure of doing well in my academics. But
Yeah.
then in terms of like comedy for me, it was like I was putting pressure on myself, being like, I wasn't good as I was last performance, or I wasn't good as I was like last performance. And I
Yeah.
feel like you'll constantly go through that. Like, you said you did like dance, right? So I
Yeah.
bet there were like times where you're like, maybe this performance wasn't as good as that one. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
because you constantly are setting this bar for yourself. And I
Yeah.
feel like the parents also have this sort of bar for you or this like form of expectation from you.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know if you have an older sibling, but
I have a younger sibling.
dude, what are you putting your younger sibling through? I have an older sister, and she's
Oh,
doing pretty well right now.
oh,
And so they're
nice.
like, you gotta meet that standard. So there's like certain expectations set. Like not only are you setting expectations for yourself for like other things you really like, um, but then there's also the external like parental pressure of being like, you gotta lock in, you gotta do this, you gotta do that.
Yeah.
Um, and I feel like all the like the pressure comes from a good place. Like, like your parents are trying to make you better in one way or another. Like you're trying to make yourself better in one way or another. So while it comes from a good place, I feel like it's really hard to like understand that it's all for good. Like it's not harmful. Like you shouldn't go through this like loop like mentally being like, oh, like freaking out. And it's
Yeah.
definitely easier said than it is done. But
Yeah, I
that's like
mean, we're still teenagers, and it's okay to venture out into new interests and like,
for sure.
because like I know some people they get confused with their lives and they start coping with like drugs and alcohol, and that can lead to so many consequences. Is I don't know. I just feel like, just coming into like, comedy or just the entertainment industry, like I'd say, it just releases so many toxins from your body just by laughing and like,
Yeah, for sure,
expressing
for
your
sure.
feelings.
Yeah,
Yeah, what are
definitely. I
your
think.
Yeah.
just getting involved with like something that you really like and are really passionate. It doesn't have to be like a performing art or like a sport. Like
Yeah.
if you like puzzling or you like making YouTube content or anything like that, just anything that you really
Mhm.
love, you're gonna be releasing like certain toxins that just make you like happier, you know? And I think like that's like really important. And I think it's overlooked for sure in our society. Like a lot of people are just like,
Definitely.
do robotics, take these AP classes, take the
Yeah.
SAT, get into college. You know, there's all these things lined up, and you're
Yeah.
not really like you don't even get the chance to like venture out into things that you really like. And that's why I was saying earlier that I'm like really glad my parents like sort of gave me like the freedom to like look through what I really wanted to do because I know for a lot of people have it much harder than me. You know, they don't even get the chance to like venture out into things that they
Mhm.
really like. And I think I was really blessed to be able to be a part of that speech team that I was a part of to like really find my love for public speaking and then watch like comedy with my family and like I feel like everything like led to like the next thing and I think that was really nice. It came pretty easy to me, but I think for a lot of people they're definitely like it's much harder for so many other people. So I would say I'm definitely like lucky in that sense. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Zara, for being here today. And I loved hearing your story about your journey of comedy, and I hope to see you on stage someday.
Yes, oh my God, for sure, for sure. I would love to have you in the crowd,
Yay!
hopefully laughing. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. It was really fun being here.
Awesome.